So, what types of loops we may have? Actually, we may have a few different types of looping control structures such as while loops, do-while loops, and for loops. And although all of them are used with the loop's context, some are better for one thing while others are better for another. It simply depends on the task. It's just that the way you control how to iterate, how to run your loop, that's basically what is different between them. And in this video, we are going to focus and we are going to talk about the first one, the while loop. So the while loop is one of the first loops being taught, and the reason for that is because this type of loop is probably the easiest one. So how its structure looks like. First of all, you specify that it's a while loop, right? That we are using a while loop by using the statement while. Then you write down the loop condition. So a while loop has its own condition. And if the result of this condition happens to be true, if it happens to be true, then we are going to execute the associated block of commands, or as it also called, the loop body, the loop commands. And we can think of the loop body as we can see it in this illustration as some different tasks that this guy has to do. For example, he has to talk on the phone, listen to customers, try to find bugs in his code, and so on. So that would be the loop body. For example, this guy comes to work, and as long as some condition happens, as long as it's true, he executes all the commands, all his tasks that are specified in the loop body. Now, maybe this illustration looks kind of funny for you, but we are going to see in the next chapters why we kind of dwell on these kind of explanations, and you're going to understand that studying this material in that way is much easier. It's much easier, guys, trust me, and you will get much more out of it, right, than instead of just going out and seeing how it will look like in our code and what should I write. Okay, understand the concepts behind every section, and it will take you much less time to get a hold of everything else. And lastly, using our while loops, we are going to execute these commands in the loop body that you can see on the right, as long as the condition of this while loop happens to be true. So when it happens to be false, we are going to stop executing this loop body, these commands inside of it. We will see in the next examples how it will look like also in our code, so things are going to be much more clear to you. But before we do so, let's explain this illustration once again. We can say that this guy, let's call him Jacob. Jacob comes to work here on the left, and while a certain condition is not false, for example, while his shift is not over, he is going to execute the loop body tasks. Is that clear? So he comes to work, checks if the shift is not over yet, and the result for that is going to be true, it's not over yet. Then he does these tasks of calling on the phone, fixing some bugs, writing some code, and so on. And afterwards, once he's done one iteration, we are going to explain it right away. Once he are done one cycle of this loop, he is going to ask the same question, the same condition once again. So if his shift at work is not over, he is going to iterate and to run this loop body once again. He is going to do his, let's say, cycle of tasks once again. And as long as the result of the question will be true, meaning that the shift is not over, Jacob is going to do all of his tasks. Once the result of the condition will be false, then Jacob, in this case, will go home and not run the loop body again. He will not do any of these phone calls. He's done for today. He can go home. And by the way, we can see that Jacob here on the right, he kind of gets mad at work, so don't get mad at work, guys. That won't help you at all. Simply calm down, drink some tea, and move on with your task with a smile. So now let's get back to our while loop, and we can say that when the condition of the while loop is false, then we just skip all the while code, and we will see how it looks like in our programming language, and move on with our program with whatever commands may appear afterwards. We are out of this loop when the condition is false. So I hope that's clear. And last note for this video is that the execution of the loop body, one cycle of the loop body, before we check the condition once again, one cycle from top to bottom, just once, is called an iteration. And basically a loop can have multiple iterations as part of it, right? As long as the condition is not false. So let's take another look and see how it will more resemble to our program. So there is our code, different commands, and there we come to a certain point where we see the while statement, okay? So we are doing a lot of work. Jacob is at work, he's working. It's another example, another illustration. Jacob is working, and we come to a point where we are going to use the while loop. So we ask the question, the condition, we check this while loop condition, does Jacob need to finish his work? And if this condition happens to be true, then we are going to execute some specific commands specified in the loop body. We do one iteration of the loop, just one iteration. Jacob is just going to keep working to execute some more tasks at his work. And once he's done executing these specific commands that he had to do, we are going back to check once again if the condition is true or false. Does Jacob need to finish his work? And if the condition is still true, then we are going to execute this code once again. And basically we are going to repeat this whole process, this cycle, until the result of the condition is going to be false. So once the result of the condition is false, we can get out of the loop and proceed with our program and our other commands. And then we can say that Jacob can go home. So that's basically the general structure of while loops. I used here a couple of illustration, visualization, call it whatever you like, that may help you a little bit understand the concept behind it. And we will see more practical examples in this section, but still I think it's nice to understand this loop structure in general before we dive into programming. So now let us see how it can be used in our programming language right away. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.